Today we're looking at distance formula, midpoint formula, and we're going to bring slope back in for good measure. Since we're talking about those things, we must be talking about ordered pairs. So we're going to look at the distance between points on a graph. Ordered pairs, we're going to look at the midpoint, which is the halfway point between 2 points on the graph. And again, we're going to bring back slope. So we're going to look at slope between two points on the graph. So let's look at what the distance formula says, what it is. Okay, it looks like a lot of stuff, but it really is not that hard. What you're going to do, the distance formula is the square root of x2 minus x1. So this should bring back memories of slope formula where you have an x2 and an x1. And then you add that to the square of y2 minus y1, then you take the square root of that. This is actually derived from the Pythagorean theorem. I'm not going to show you how it's done right now, but this is where this comes from. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So that's what we're going to do. Find the difference between these two and square it, difference between these two and square it, add them together, and take the square root. Okay, pretty simple. With midpoint, what you see here is basically, I don't guess, it's a formula for x and a formula for y separately. So to find the x value of the midpoint, you add the two x's together and divide by 2. To find the y value of the midpoint, you add the two y's together and divide by 2. That's why it's in parentheses like that, because the answer is an ordered pair, not a number. Okay, and you know slope, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's look at some of our problems today. Distance between 2 points. You can label them. I think it's always kind of good to help keep us straight. Why'd I do x2, y2? Well, we're going to do it like that because I don't want to erase that. So x1, y1. And I try to make that a 4. I'm just messing up all the way around. So x2 is 11. x1 is 7. And I forgot to put the squares up there. Let me do that. Okay. We're going to put that on there and put a square. Okay. Plus y2 minus y1, negative 2 minus negative 5. And we're going to square it. And it's going to be the square root of all of that. That's pretty ugly, but that's the way it is. So 11 minus 7 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Okay. Now when I do that, I get 3 squared, which is 9. The square root of 16 plus 9 is the square root of 25. And the square root of 25, as we know, is 5. And remember, it's the positive because the square root sign is wanting the positive answer. Okay, not both plus and negative. So let's look at the next one. I think clearing the ink would be good. Okay, I'm going to add those here. Okay, x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're going to big square root sign. If you don't put it on there, you'll forget it later. It happens all the time. So it's going to be 5 minus negative 1 squared plus negative 2 minus 3 squared. Okay? Now, and again, since you're adding, it doesn't matter if you put the y here and the x here. It really doesn't, okay? And you're squaring them too. So we're going to add that. That's going to be 6 squared, which is 36. We're going to add that because it's same sign sum. That's 25. Okay, and when I add those together, I get 61. Square root of 61. Okay, if I could simplify this, I would, but I can't. Square root of 61 is just square root of 61. There's not a perfect square that goes into that. So we're done. Okay, let's look at the next one. Maybe I can keep my square root sign there. Yeah, I can. Okay, x1, y1, x2, y2. We've got 10 minus 0. We've got negative 5 minus negative 1. That's added together, and they're squared. Okay, they're squared. So 10 minus 0 is just 10. 10 squared is 100. That's 100. This is going to be negative 4, but when I square it, it's a positive 16. Okay, so I get the square root of 116. Now, it's even, so you just want to check. We're going to do a little upside down division here, and if nothing works, we're good. 2 goes in that 5 times, the remainder 1. 2 goes in that 8 times. So we're going to do 2 again, and that's going to be 29. and then 29 and 1. So we can use something here. Multiply the pairs, you get 4. So this is really 4 times 29, which becomes 2 square root 29. So we do want to simplify our answer like that. Okay, let's go one more, and then I'll show you a little midpoint formula stuff. Okay, x1, y1, x2, y2. Let's subtract the x's, so 5 minus 6, and we're going to square it, plus 7 minus 3, and we're going to square it. Okay, 5 minus 6 is negative 1 squared is 1. That's going to be 4 squared. 7 minus 3 is 4. 4 squared is 16. And when I add those together, I get the square root of 17. That can't be simplified, so that is our answer, square root of 17. We don't want to get a decimal answer and round it. We just want to leave it in square root form. Okay, so simplify it if you can, like we did the 1. Other than that, just leave it in square root form. Okay, next page. Midpoint formula. Okay, this is really pretty easy. The formula may look a little ugly, but it's really pretty easy. Okay, what we're going to do for midpoint, basically you just add the x's together and divide by 2. Okay, so if I was showing my work here, I would do negative 9 plus 3 and write it over 2. So that's going to be negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. Here, you add the y's together. It's 8 plus negative 4 over 2. That gives me 4 over 2, which is just 2. And there's a midpoint. Okay? Again, add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. You have an x value here, a y value here. It's in parentheses. Now the slope, if you remember, it's negative 4 minus 8 on top. It's y2 minus y1 over negative 9 minus 3 on the bottom, over x2 minus x1. And so that's going to be a negative 12 over negative 12. That gives me a positive 1 slope. Okay, positive 1 slope. Okay, let's clear the ink here. Let's do another one. Okay, midpoint. We're going to add the x's and divide by 2. Add the y's and divide by 2. Again, I'll show my work one more time. The rest of the time, we'll just do it in our head. Okay, it's going to be 8 plus 3 divided by 2. That's going to be 11 divided by 2. So we'll just, it's just a decimal, so it's just 5.5. Okay? Now the other one is negative 3 plus 7 divided by 2. That gives me 4 over 2, which is 2. So my answer is 5.5 for the x value and 2 for the y value. Okay, for slope, negative 3 minus 7, and it's 8 minus 3 on the bottom. That's going to be a negative 10 over 5. That is a negative 2. Negative 2 for the slope. Okay, let me go back here. Another thing to notice about the two, notice midpoint is a capital M, slope is little m. Okay, we couldn't use little m for midpoint, so we had to use capital M, and little m was already taken. Okay, so capital M midpoint, little m slope. Here, x1, y1, x2, y2. We're going to add the x's together. So let's add these, negative 7 and 5, that's negative 2. Divide by 2, it's negative 1. That's our x value. Now add these together. 1 plus 11 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So my midpoint is negative 1, 6. Again, add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. Here for slope, it's just 11 minus 1 on top, y2 minus y1. 5 minus negative 7, you have to watch that sign. It's minus a negative, which becomes plus. That is going to be 10 over 12 divided by 2 is 5/6 for a slope. Okay, midpoint and slope. Okay, one more and we're done. Here we've got 2 and negative 3. You add those together, you get negative 1. Negative 1 divided by 2 is negative 1/2. Or if you want to do negative 0.5, I guess you can. Okay, 5 plus 7. Well, that is going to be 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So our midpoint's negative 1/2 or negative 0.56. The slope, real quick, 5 minus 7 on top, y2 minus y1. Negative 3 minus 2 on the bottom, that's x2 minus x1. That becomes negative 2 on top. That becomes a negative 5 on the bottom. Those negatives take care of each other. It is 2/5 for a slope. And that is midpoint and slope. And I do believe that is the end of our video.